We have talked about how many of the big digital platforms are based on a model that is not so distant from an ancient idea, the one of the market. To introduce another type of platform, I would like to start by using a very peculiar example, the case that has been historically used to describe a very special type of market, called two-sided market, with the case of credit cards. In this business, we have a focal actor at the center, such as MasterCard or Visa, which connects two different types of actors. The people who own a credit card, which we will call the first side, and the merchant who accept the credit card as a payment method, which we will call the second side. Put in another way, the credit card is a tool that connects someone looking for something to someone offering it. In this case, facilitating the economic transaction even in the absence of cash, making the transaction smoother and easier. The original business model was very simple. The service is practically free for the first side, while a percentage of the transaction is withheld from the merchant who actually pays for the service for both groups. Today, there are somewhat more complex combinations that depend on the specific credit card, but even now, one side is fully or partially subsidized by the other. Typically, platforms like credit cards bring together at demand side a group of people looking for a good or service with a supply side, a group offering that service. So we see a customer-supplier dynamic between the two sides. But by taking the perspective of the central platform, we'll see that both are customers. MasterCard or Visa offer a service to both cardholders and merchants, giving them the ability to use and accept this payment method. This is the first key feature of these kind of platforms. They have two groups of customers directly linked together. In fact, the service offering is tied precisely to the creation of a link between the two sides. The second defining characteristic is related to the value of the platform. The credit card itself has no value to those who own it unless there are merchants ready to accept it. At the same time, for the merchants to accept that credit card will have the more value, so much more will be the card owners. This mechanism derives from network effects and is called indirect or cross-side network externalities. The value of these platforms is defined on the basis of the cross-side numerosity of the actors on the two sides. In other words, the system has no intrinsic value unless there are many actors on one side, which creates value for users on the other side. Having two sets of customers interconnected by cross-side externalities means that this kind of platform is very different from traditional businesses, those in which the company has suppliers and customers and creates value by transforming inputs into output, which we can call linear value chain businesses. These two characteristics, having two distinct customers and the existence of cross-side externalities, mean that launching a business of this kind faces different difficulties. Every traditional company has the problem of convincing customers of the value of its innovation. In this case, however, we must convince two groups of customers of the value of our idea. But since the value of our idea depends on how many users we have on the opposite side, and at the beginning we don't have any, we have to convince customers of an idea that has no measurable value yet. That's why we talk about chicken and egg paradox. It's very difficult to convince people to own a credit card that no merchant accepts yet. And at the same time, it's very difficult to convince merchants to accept a credit card if nobody owns it. The possibility of offering the service free of charge to a side, as mentioned earlier, often helps to get out of this paradox, choosing to subsidize the side that is most difficult to convince. Linked directly to this first difficulty is the second, the definition of the pricing strategy. How can we define the price of a service if its value depends on the number of players who will participate in the system. This is the dilemma that has interested the researchers who first studied this kind of business. The answer lies in the value of the cross-price elasticity of demand between the two sides, which makes it possible to identify the best side to subsidize. The original concept behind credit cards is that of the two-sided market. For years, researchers considered having two distinct customers and leveraging cross-site externalities as something intrinsic to some specific markets, such as the credit cards. Over time, however, we have come to realize that this is not an inherent feature of the market, but rather a clear choice of innovation by the organization creating the platform. If you try to think of some of the most successful companies born in the new millennium, you can realize how many of them are based on this very business model. I'm thinking about companies like Airbnb or Uber, but also Spotify, Deliveroo, or less young eBay and Booking.com. We are dealing with an organization whose primary objective is to create a basic platform that allows different groups of players to get in touch, get to know each other, and work together. The two-sided market model then evolves into the so-called transactional two-sided platform, or more simply, transactional platforms. This is a basic structure that allows you to create value not by offering a product or a service, but by connecting different groups of customers that you are looking for. A transactional platform can be defined as products or services where two or multiple groups of customers are get together through a platform that internalizes indirect network externalities. Also in this case, we can create a parallelism regarding the other types of platforms. Like product platforms, we have a central body without intrinsic value that enables value creation. Unlike a product platform, however, the basic platform in this case does not allow to generate new products, but to enable transactions between the sides. Like innovation platforms, we have two or potentially more customer groups involved that generate cross-network externalities. Unlike innovation platforms, however, without having both sides, the customer groups, the platform cannot exist, making the launch of a transactional two-sided platform much more complex. This last characteristic clearly differentiates innovation and transactional platforms that otherwise might be confused due to cross-site externalities. A tip to keep in mind the difference: iOS is an innovation platform since it enables developers to create something new that will enhance the value of the iPhone. The Apple App Store is a transactional platform that lets end users get in touch with developers.